Are you a lifelong jazz guitar fan stuck in a rut of playing blues and rock? Have you always wanted to learn to play jazz fluidly but are intimidated by the process? I was there once too, but don't worry, it ain't as scary as it seems. Allow me to share with you 5 comforting things I wish I knew before starting my jazz journey. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Tim and I teach jazz guitar. This channel is all about distilling the concepts of jazz guitar into the most clear and simple steps so that you can make progress even with a small amount of daily practice. If you like this idea, give us a follow and keep watching. Now, without further ado, here are 5 facts I wish I knew at the outset of learning jazz, which would have helped me navigate through the seemingly treacherous waters. Number 1, ditch the modes. You don't need them. But wait. Isn't this contrary to everything I've read about learning jazz? I play the Dorian mode over the 2 chord. I play the Mixolydian over the 5. Stop right there. I too fell for this trick, but I can guarantee none of your heroes learn to play jazz this way. Don't believe me? Check this out.
Yeah, let me tell you, never in my life, I never heard of anything about a Dorian or a Mixolydian or a Lydian. I ain't heard nothing, but I learned how to play jazz. I know all of you know about the Dorian and the Mixolydian. I know nothing about that nonsense. I ain't never heard of it in my life.
Now, I'll be doing an entire future video about why modes are possibly the worst thing ever to happen to jazz education. But to summarize the reason for my contempt, I'll say that using modes forces us to think about playing scales instead of playing chords and melodies. They're almost always the reason your solos sound incoherent, tuneless, and uninspired, and they're probably also the reason you've been confused so far in your efforts to learn to improvise. So what should we focus on instead of modes? That brings me to number 2. Instead of modes, learn the 7 major and minor triads and arpeggios of the major scale. But wait, isn't that just a difference in semantics? Instead of 7 modes, we should learn 7 arpeggios? Well, yes, it's kind of semantic, but also absolutely not. If instead of memorizing modes, we focus on triads and arpeggios of the chords that lie within the major scale, we become intuitively familiar with what we call chord tones, which are the strong melody notes that make up each chord. Not only does this allow for greater understanding of chords and how they work, but the use of chord tones in your improvisation will lead you to better crafted solos. When improvising, it's the chord tones that outline the underlying progression. Focusing on these notes will naturally evoke strong melodies and great coherence while playing over the changes. It really is the foundation of sounding like a fluid improviser. It's also a great way to learn to visualize chord progressions within a single caged position so you don't feel the need to fly around the fretboard. So, to summarize, forget the modes. Instead, I'd highly recommend you begin by learning the major scale in one of the 5 caged positions, then practice each of the major and minor triads and 7th chord arpeggios within that shape. Once you learn to connect the triads together, that's when your improv skills will truly take off. Now, if you'd like to learn specifically how to practice and use chord tones in your soloing, we've got a 30-day course that will take you from complete noob to a fluid improviser. It features 21 hours of video instruction with accompanying downloadable tabs and backing tracks and has around an hour's worth of daily guided practice broken up into segments to fit into a busy schedule. The link is below in the description. Number 3, keep it simple, stupid. Jazz has an enormously varied history with 1,000 offshoots and subgenres. From its inception, the advancement and sophistication from decade to decade is staggering, leapfrogging from blues to ragtime to swing to bebop, often shifting from one paradigm into something unrecognizable within a few short years. The theory involved over the history of jazz can and does fill entire textbooks. Before you run off to learn giant steps, why not try starting with something from one of the earlier periods of jazz? To my own students, I would suggest that learning jazz might be easier if we start in the order in which it developed. There's some beautiful tunes from the early days of jazz in, say, the era of Buddy Bolden, Louis Armstrong, or Django that have fantastic melodies, minimal chords, but with traditional progressions that crop up throughout all subsequent periods of jazz, such as the 2-5-1 or the 4 minor to 1. Some examples are Rose Room or St. James Infirmary, which are excellent choices to begin learning the art of improvisation, and you can still call them at jam sessions. Number 4, organized practice is better than long practice. Now, it's easy to think that learning jazz requires hours upon hours of practice, and if you're not putting in 6 hours a day, then you won't get anywhere. In fact, progress in music, as with anything else, is made by consistency rather than the romanticized image of long, arduous hours of blood, sweat, and tears. And in order to cultivate this consistency, it's crucial to be organized. Now, the most important organizational tips I learned that really helped me to improve are as follows. A, pick a regular practice time and stick to it every day. Pick only 2 or 3 subjects to focus on during your session, no more than that. Then divide your practice time into 2 or 3 separate blocks in which to focus on each subject. You can set a timer for each block and make sure you focus intently during that time. As soon as the timer goes off, immediately stop, then take a break. For example, if I want to make sure I practice for an hour every day, I'll make sure I have 3 20-minute blocks, each focusing on different subjects. This helps to make sure you stay mindful for the duration of each section. C, do things out of your comfort zone. If you find yourself noodling mindlessly, playing your favorite licks, then you're not practicing, you're just playing. It might be fun, but it won't help you progress. Gently remind yourself you can play whenever you want, but this is the time to stick to your purpose. D, go easy on yourself. Frustration and boredom are natural parts of a regular practice routine. Instead of overwhelming yourself with your goals, try to think of practice as a mindfulness meditation. Try to gently cultivate awareness of what you're doing, and if your focus starts to wane, which it will, gently bring it back to what's in front of you. Make sure your body remains relaxed, your movements stay deliberate. If you begin to tense up or make mistakes, don't worry. Just stop, slow the tempo down until you're able to play fluidly. And now for our final point, number 5. Doing music is hard. There'll be many days where you feel like you suck and that progress eludes you. Keep going. The primary quality that determines a successful musician from a thwarted one is determination. We're all in the same boat and have our off days, weeks, or even months. But remember that progress is never linear, so it's important to keep at it no matter what, because only then can we sustain it long enough to hit those magical but elusive flashes of enlightenment. Yes, it's challenging, and yes, we'll lose morale, but this is exactly why it's worth doing. Playing music is part meditation, part prayer, part ecstatic dance, and will certainly be one of the most fulfilling things you do in your life. Remember this in those frustrating moments, remember you're not alone, and remember to keep moving forward. So, to summarize, the 5 things I wish I knew before beginning jazz are: don't bother with modes, you won't need them. 2, learn the triads and arpeggios contained within each cage position, mastering one position at a time. This will teach you how to use chord tones and think about melody. 3, keep it simple. We all want to shred on Cherokee at 300 BPM, but the fastest way to get there is to master the basics. Choose a song with a simple structure first, perhaps from the early days of jazz, and master the basic chord changes before adding complexity. 4, organized practice is better than long practice. Keep your daily sessions short enough to be achievable and only focus on 2 or 3 subjects. Consistency is the key to success. And 5, remember that learning music isn't supposed to be easy. There'll be many days when we feel down about our abilities, but just know that feelings aren't the truth. Every single musician in the world is beset with frustrations on a regular basis, and the thing that separates the great from the amateur, the great ones keep going despite their frustrations. Now, I want to know, are there any other encouraging secrets you'd share with players who are new to jazz? If so, please share them in the comments below. If you enjoyed what you heard, give us a like and follow, and I'll see you in the next one.